Hello and welcome to our security bootcamp. My name is Akhilesh Dhawan. I am Director of Product Marketing at Citrix. And my role is around go-to-market for our Zero Trust solutions and the strategy that we have for providing you security services coming from the Citrix portfolio. Today, we're going to be talking about uh, the 4 keys to a successful transition to Zero Trust Network Access. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you will need to keep in mind for implementing a Zero Trust solution. But before we get into the agenda, I would highly recommend and ask if you can submit your questions during the course of our conversations. There will be experts at the end of the webinar who will be answering your questions. So let's get started. In the agenda today, I think we're going to talk a little bit about what is causing more and more conversations around Zero Trust, and talking about our legacy technologies. And then we'll, briefly touch on what secure workspace is from Citrix. Citrix Secure Workspace Access, and then obviously jump into some of the successful stories that we've heard, being implemented, and some of the things that you need to keep in mind for implementing a very successful Zero Trust implementation. So let's talk about the expectations of hybrid work. The one long-lasting impact of this pandemic, apart from medical and health issues, is the permanent change we see in our work styles, where going to office was a trend. We see most of the corporations now moving to a flexible work style where work from home will be a norm. User productivity will be as important as security, and we believe it will be very critical to provide an environment that is secure as well as help users get their jobs done. This is where security vendors will also need to focus on making security part of our working life and making it seamless to consume and not creating roadblocks for users. Hence, the ability to support devices that are BYO or personal, unmanaged, locations where any users, be it contractor, an employee, or a business partner is working from, giving them access based on contextual parameters to applications that they are authorized to access will be very important. And in order to do that, Zero Trust is the need of the hour. Not only do you need these variables to be supported, but need a mechanism to continuously monitor and evaluate each of these user sessions to understand they are acting the way they should be, so any malicious intent is detected before it actually occurs. So let's talk about what Citrix Secure Workspace Access is. It's a completely cloud-delivered solution that provides you Zero Trust network access to any on-prem web applications or any third-party SaaS applications, complete single sign-on across all these different applications. And if you're using our virtualized apps and desktops and accessing them through Workspace, now you can actually unify and access not only your virtual apps, but with Secure Workspace Access, you can also access your web applications that traditionally you would need a VPN for, or even the third-party SaaS applications that are delivered by you through your IT. And it's not only about single sign-on access. There is a layer of contextual parameters that we put on top of with Secure Workspace Access, and delivers you security just beyond MFA and single sign-on. If you look at the next slide in terms of the unification, right? I mean, we talked about unified access, and a lot of solutions today focus on SaaS applications. Then there are a few more solutions that now are expanding into web applications. But Citrix is the only vendor that really delivers you a unified access to your virtual apps, your SaaS apps, your web applications in one single place. And as I was saying, right, it's going beyond just the access piece, layering on top of with security controls that helps you protect data within these SaaS and web applications, things like watermarking the web pages, or things like ability to allow copy paste of data from web applications or SaaS applications where the data that they're storing might be really sensitive. And it does integrate with our ADC and Citrix Gateway product. And if you're using one of those to access your virtualized apps and desktop environments, and you have implemented some of the contextual access parameters with it, you can expand all those security policies with Citrix Workspace Access. And it does provide out of the box MFA with multi-factor authentication with push notification. But if you're using a third-party authentication, we obviously integrate with all those solutions as well. And as part of secure workspace access, as we kind of move into this pandemic, it is very important for us to understand that and acknowledge that not all devices will be managed by IT. There will be set of devices that are BYO. There will be set of devices which are corporate owned but unmanaged. And it becomes very important to protect data when the applications are accessed through those devices. And as a result, we kind of integrated our secure browser service, which is a isolated browser in the cloud, delivered through the cloud, for users who are looking to access their corporate applications from BYO and devices where they don't want to install a plugin. And we get this ability with kind of redirecting some of these sessions in a isolated browser that protects the applications as well as devices from any malicious content that might be coming in from our sanctioned applications and so on and so forth. And the one thing that we obviously assume as part of the zero trust strategy or go-to-market is that your device will be infected. And as a result, we have some policies within Secure Workspace Access, which we call it app protection policies, that allow you to protect any sessions from keyloggers or any screen capturing malware that might be infecting those devices. And then in the end, we have analytics for security that allows you to obviously continuously monitor and assess the risk throughout the user session. The one assumption that we make is, users, when they are authorized to access, they will be compromised or they are malicious, as zero trust kind of signifies, is always plan for the worst. And that is what we kind of try to do with analytics for security, is the ability to continuously monitor and assess the behavior of how an authorized user, be it an employee, be it a contractor, be it your business partner, is acting and interacting with the applications and the data that may hold any sensitive information. And then we can obviously enforce some of the policies. We can automate some of the enforcements within the user session itself. So the three use cases that we normally see from customers who have or who are looking to deploy secure workspace access is the number one reason obviously around is customers asking about augmenting or replacing their VPN solutions that are not very scalable in terms, especially in these times when most of the workers are remote, or they have security flaws in terms of providing access at the network layer, or not being able to support BYO or devices that are not managed, and so on and so forth. So for that reason, a lot of our customers are looking to deploy secure workspace access and have deployed workspace access to get access to their on-prem web applications, whether they are deployed in data center or in a public cloud environment, and provide a contextual multi-factor authentication and policies that allow you to determine if you're coming in from location A versus location B, or if you're using a device that is managed, unmanaged, or if to get the complete analysis of your device posture. So based on those, we can actually allow or deny access to applications that you're trying to access. Then obviously we talk about the ability to access these applications from devices that may not be managed, that may be BYO. Obviously, we support managed devices. That is an obvious requirement for us. But a lot of vendors, they ignore or they don't support BYO technology, BYO devices, because they either one, don't have any security controls that can allow users to access applications in a secure manner, um, or they're trying to kind of push an MDM solution or a device management solution for all devices. But for Citrix, I think we give a choice to the customers whether they want to manage all the devices. Obviously, we have our MDM solution with Citrix Endpoint Management, but we also allow security controls in the form of an isolated browser or app protection policies that can allow your users to securely access the applications you have for them in a very kind of secure and an isolated environment, using their personal devices or using the devices that you can't manage today. And then obviously going beyond single sign-on for SaaS and web applications, you'll see a lot of vendors talking about multi-factor authentication and the ability to do single sign-on across all applications. But that's not enough. I think the Citrix, the way we differentiate against our competition is we go beyond just single sign-on and contextual MFA in terms of providing policies, which we talk about in a cloud app control, policies that can help protect any sensitive information that are stored in these SaaS applications or in these web applications, by allowing you to watermark your web pages, by allowing you to kind of control whether a user can copy or print a web page, and so on and so forth. This just allows more preventive controls in order for you, your customer or users, to take a screenshot or take a picture of the information or print information and share out with their with any external entities that they may. And this gives a complete end-to-end security solutions for accessing your applications. So let's talk about, we talked about the product and provided some of the use cases. Let's get on with how we see customers who have implemented Zero Trust, what has been their success story, and things that we recommend from Citrix. So first and foremost, I think the biggest myth in the industry, and this might be because a lot of vendors or some of the vendors talk about it, is do I have to really rip and replace everything in my data center or infrastructure that I have today to implement a Zero Trust solution? The answer obviously is no, right? If you are a Citrix customer, we don't push for a rip and replace of your existing investments and start from scratch. There are, if you look at the journey for implementing Zero Trust, we don't start from zero. We already have a lot of infrastructure that the customers can keep reusing while they move on their Zero Trust journey. For example, our Citrix Gateway customers, they access their Citrix virtual apps and desktop environments, and only Citrix Gateway allows them to really do contextual policies for their virtual apps and desktops environment. There is no other vendor that we have provided licenses to understand our protocols, and none of the vendors can really enforce any security policies in the session or understand any kind of protocol level things that we are doing within our virtualized apps and desktops. So it not only gives you the Citrix Gateway solution obviously understands the protocol that we have, so it allows you to enforce some of the in-session policies as well as the contextual controls to access the virtual apps and desktop environments, and provide you a dashboard that not only tells you what users are doing, but you can now start calculating if the users are malicious, how to enforce and automate some of the security controls like logging of the user or doing a session recording for those particular users. And that is something that only Citrix Gateway helps you do, or an end-to-end Citrix solution helps you do. If you're looking at other vendors implementing Zero Trust, we highly recommend that you talk to them and understand the differences in the delta of features you will not be getting when you are going out with a third-party vendor for implementing a ZTNA or a Zero Trust solution across all your environments. And then for Citrix Gateway customers or any Citrix customers, right? You can extend your gateway security policies to Workspace Access, and this is a very seamless way to kind of start looking at accessing, some of the applications that you don't want your users to access through a VPN, like your web applications, like your SaaS applications, where VPNs really fall short in terms of you don't need a network level access to, really access your web pages or any HTTP or browser related applications, whether they are web applications or third-party SaaS applications. And you don't have to backhaul all your traffic in the data center when these applications are all sitting in the cloud. And you can obviously, also, you don't say and talk about, you don't have to replace your authentication providers. If you're using any third-party IDP or any directory like Okta or Google or Microsoft, Azure AD or AD, we don't ask you to replace and use additional any other third-party directories. We support these out of the box. We also support any authentication providers that you may have, like Duo or Ubico or any RSA Symantec of the world that you use to do multi-factor authentication and you use their tokens. We obviously seamlessly integrate with those technologies, and we don't ask you to rip and replace any of those things. So what we do recommend our existing customers especially is to continue using Gateway for virtual apps and desktops, and then start migrating your browser-based applications from your VPNs in the same workspace UI that you access your virtual apps and desktops from. And that those applications don't need to be virtualized, the web applications and the SaaS applications, and we can do single sign-on natively to those applications. The second key point that I wanted to all talk about is identifying the most critical elements of your Zero Trust strategy. Obviously, it starts with identity. Identity is the most important element when you're talking about Zero Trust. And the ability to keep the identity consistent across all applications. So you can really understand what users are doing, whether they're accessing your sanctioned applications, whether they're going to the internet, or they're accessing any data on your network. I think keeping that identity consistent is very critical and very important for your monitoring systems that you may already have. Can understand the end-to-end behavior of that user. And then obviously one thing that we kind of talk about, obviously I touched upon it earlier, is the ability to consider all your end user devices. Now there are some vendor solutions that will ask you to go and manage all your devices. Obviously in today's world, it may be possible, but in a lot of customer cases, we see that they don't want to manage all devices because it really turns out to be extremely costly and extremely unmanageable with the way that users are accessing their applications. A lot of times they are on the move, they are outside, they are doing something, and they want to use their personal devices to access applications. So do consider the BYO and unmanaged devices to stay in your environment when you're talking about Zero Trust, right? There are controls in place that, at least from Citrix standpoint, we provide for you to securely implement your BYO programs and allow access to applications from these BYO and unmanaged endpoints. The third, obviously, is when you're looking at implementing these solutions, don't just limit it to single sign-on and multi-factor and just remote access in general. Look at going beyond it, beyond just the single sign-on experience, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of vendors talking about zero trust, they're only limiting your security at the entry, right? Which is your contextual parameters. You do a single sign-on, you do authenticate yourself with MFA, and you're in. Then you have keys to the kingdom. Your users are can do whatever they need to do. And that does result in a lot of malicious activity, right? Authorized users or insiders, as we call it. A lot of malicious intention comes in when there is a disgruntled employee, or maybe, as we know, they might be compromised by external entities. So you need to look beyond just single sign-on. Look for solutions that allow obviously the best user experience in terms of getting single sign-on across all applications, but also allow for security controls to be implemented once the users are inside those applications. Solutions like the ability to protect the data, the ability to prevent users from taking screenshots, the ability to prevent users from printing information and sharing it out, and always assume a breach, right? That's the kind of mantra that Zero Trust has taught us. And if you look at the various attacks that have happened in the recent past, most of these attacks happen, one, because there was no controls to prevent insiders getting hands on information that they either were authorized to access, but they shared outside, or they got unauthorized access or too much access into those informations. So always assume a breach and monitor and evaluate users and devices continuously. I think that is the key of really implementing a successful zero trust strategy across your applications. And then look for vendors with complete stack. I think one thing that Zero Trust talks about is consolidating your vendors. We see a lot of reports recently came out from Gartner. Most of the organizations and CISOs are looking at consolidating vendors because there are just too many of vendors that you are dealing with today. And that obviously results in a much costlier solution, but it also results in a headache where there is already a kind of shortage of IT and security skill sets in the market. And then we see a lot of customers scrambling to hire resources for 20 products that they have or 20 security products that they have in their data centers. So I think the consolidation of vendors is extremely important, and looking at vendors who can implement an end-to-end solution is going to be a very key component of a successful zero trust, right, strategy. So don't just limit it to replacing your VPN or augmenting your VPN in case you do want to keep your VPN solutions for some applications. But look at vendors, who can really help you with replacing different legacy solutions. We see a lot of legacy solutions like secure web gateways that are still sitting in the data centers where if I'm trying to, or users are trying to access internet from their home networks, or they're trying to access SaaS applications, all that traffic has to be backhaul into the data center and policies applied there, and then they break out to the internet. And that's not the right way to do it. Obviously, because those are not the inline controls that we expect as users, because now there is a lot of latency introduced in the system, and not all the security policies are up to date and real time. And that also results in a lot of zero-day attacks when you're kind of trying to manage all these different on-prem legacy solutions like secure web gateways or even the DLP, where these DLP controls are on premises. And when you're accessing your files, when you're accessing your data that is coming out from the internet, all of that has to be now pushed into the data center, controls applied, and then come back to you. So that really results in a lot of performance issues, and not all the real-time controls can be implemented. And then looking beyond security, I think one of the things that at least we hear from our analysts and a lot of our customers, is the coming together of our security services like SWIGs, like VPNs, DLP controls, CASB, and all that, with networking controls like SD-WAN, which provide reliability of your connections from not only branch locations, but also from your remote locations, right? So the ability to have a reliable connection is extremely important. And there are only a handful of vendors who can really provide you an end-to-end stack of these cloud services coming together with the networking solutions. So if you look at Citrix being one vendor that can really provide you a complete stack with this with an SD-WAN as a service, as a solution in our portfolio. A lot of vendors will push you to a partner solution where obviously, again, you have to deal with a second vendor or a third vendor, but we can really provide you a complete stack with SD-WAN and secure workspace access, obviously, as I talked about, and then secure internet access. I think this is something that you would have seen in the other session on SASE. Kiran talking about our secure internet access story, where we provide a complete cloud-based solution to which can help you replace your traditional SWIGs that you may have deployed on premises. And it also goes further in applying some of the CASB controls and DLP controls for your SaaS and applications you're trying to access on the internet. So it's a complete stack of cloud security services. You may also call it, as you may, as SASE for a complete end-to-end zero trust implementation. So how do we get started? Obviously, as I talk about, right, the first thing is just try to see what you have in a data center and try to reuse some of the technologies that you have. Like, Citrix Gateway, I talked about how it can help you kind of get started with a zero trust for your virtual apps and desktops. And then you can start expanding with secure workspace access and use the same security policies that you have with Gateway to expand into your web and SaaS applications. So that's one way we would suggest, as opposed to replacing everything and throwing out everything that you have spent your money on. That is one way or one place you can really get started with Citrix. And then obviously, we can help you kind of understand the second, third, and fourth, and we can work with you to really implement the end-to-end security and zero trust with identity and BYO as part of the strategy, and going beyond just single sign-on, and providing you a complete stack of how we can help you migrate from your legacy appliances to more cloud-based modern IT services. So that's all I have for the session today. I will highly recommend, if you have any questions, please post it in your window that you might see along with abstract and handouts. You have a link on submit a question. Please do submit a question, and I hope you enjoy the event. And thank you so much for joining us today.